Thank you, and welcome to everyone who survived all of this and staying strong for the last session. And today I want to make a case for user-owned AI. So for those who are not familiar, before crypto journey, I was actually doing machine learning research, AI research. I worked at Google across natural language understanding, question answering. If you ask questions on google.com, we actually built models that were facilitating those answers. And I worked on the technology, which is called transformers, which is actually transformed the world and pretty much is the T in GPT. It's what powering the ChatGPT, Midjourney, and all of the current innovations in AI. Now, I left Google to start a near AI startup. It was an AI startup that was teaching machines to code, and it was pretty much trying to innovate on how we interact with computing. Now, this was 2017. It was a few years too early and about $100 million lack of capital to build what OpenAI did. But we were trying to be smart. We tried to build a crowdsourcing platform where we had students around the world actually writing code for us and describing code for us. And we had this challenge of paying them because people in China, in Eastern Europe, have monetary control. Some of them don't have bank accounts. And so we faced that normal challenge of how do you do global payments at scale, and especially micropayments. 2018, even back then, fees were too high on Bitcoin and Ethereum, and that's how we got to Near protocol, which is now a scalable, easy to use, and kind of massive user base blockchain. Oh. So for those who are not familiar, the language models is not a new technology. This has existed since the 50s. It's really a statistical tool that was applicable in various ways. Now, there's something interesting happened in 2013 where it went from a kind of a pure symbolic approach where, what's the probability of where and are after where, to embedding words, converting words into vectors, into multidimensional space, and pretty much unlocking to do a lot of math on top of the words and on top of the language. So it was word embeddings, and it kind of unlocked the deep learning over natural language. So this is where actually I joined Google after seeing this, because my belief always that language is how we advance intelligence. Language is something that has all the world knowledge and allows us to have reasoning and kind of capabilities, and we're able to test machines if they actually understand something. Now, we were using recurrent neural networks, which are not also that new technology, but importantly, they mimic how humans read and understand language. They read one word at a time. The problem is, if you're asking Google, you don't want it to go and read an article for 5 minutes to give you an answer. You want it to happen instantly. And so for us, the idea of transformers came from this real need to actually scale ability to process information by machines in such a way that they can actually read everything at once. Leverage this massive parallelism capability that we have in machines and GPUs and other accelerators, and really then able to reason and give you an answer. And so transformers are this massively parallel kind of machine, and as we saw, they are very well scalable, and if you feed them tens of trillions of tokens, they become actually extremely kind of powerful in reasoning and understanding. Obviously, still a lot of research, but kind of the state of the art right now is ChatGPT. We just saw Llama 3 showing extremely powerful results as well. We have kind of a new capability that we didn't have before to understand language, to make predictions and reasoning. Now, what happens with this is we have this AI innovation that's happening, where before you needed a data scientist, machine learning engineer who was interpreting results, right? Somebody was looking at screens, looking at tables, and giving you kind of business decisions or integrating it into some product. Now we have something that can talk directly to people who are not technical. It also able to interact and take inputs that are natural language, English. And so we have a kind of a transition of how we interact with computing that's happening in front of us. Now, just to give you some context, these models are not built on your gamer GPU, right? When people say, oh, we need more GPUs, or there's lack of GPUs, these are a supercomputer pretty much in disguise, right? So each node has 8 GPUs. Each GPU costs $30,000, and you usually have 8 of them on one computer. And you have 8 to 10 computers on a rack, and they're all interconnected with a special cable connectivity to ensure that you can move pretty much information between GPUs directly without even hitting your traditional CPU, your kind of traditional processors. So models of GPT-4 size are trained on 10,000 H100s for about 3 months, and it costs around $64 million. So this is just to give you an idea what it takes to build something like this. Now, importantly, when I mentioned these things are interconnected, they're not connected with a traditional kind of networking. This is a specialized NVLink connectivity, and the current generation is 900 gigabyte per second. Compare this to your CPU to RAM connecting at 200 gigabyte per second. It's faster to move data between one GPU to another GPU in the same data center than to move information from your CPU to RAM on one computer. Now, the new Blackwell is actually at 1.8 terabytes per second throughput. It's insane connectivity, and it leads to a very weird situation where only big companies are able to train these models because they need to have access to this highly interconnected, very expensive hardware. Now, a big company has a very specific challenges, right? When they're training these models, right, it starts with data. And in the case of data set, right, somebody somewhere decides what goes into the data set, right? If you just scrape the internet, there's a lot of weird stuff going on the internet. And somebody decides that we're going to not include this information. Do we include the QAnon website? Do we include Alex Jones' website? Do we include Truth Social, right? All of these are decisions made by some team. Now, there's a legal team that also decides, oh, this is copyrighted, we don't want to include it. This is illegal. There's ethics team, we don't believe this is ethical. We don't align with this. And so all of this affects how your model works. And you have no understanding how that happened. You have no, as a user or developer, you have no visibility what went into these models. These models are statistical at the end, and they pick up the bias that you have in the training data. Now, even worse, when after the model already trained, there's a bunch of the same legal and ethics teams that are actually affecting the outcome, right? They're actually biasing the model's output depending on what is the current kind of decision-making made. And now, on top of this, these models are expensive to run. And so right now, you're assuming the output is coming from a model, but actually it can be coming from an ad, right? They can actually run an ad on you and figure out what would not be the best answer based on data, right? You're like, well, hey, give me a review of all the cars on the market right now. It can be, hey, it's from training data, here's the different options. Or it can be like that, some manufacturer paid this company to prioritize their output. And so this is extremely dangerous and kind of creates a lot of risks. And we see this happening right now, that a lot of kind of the things are getting battled out in court, right? Because we have a lot of the kind of content producers, you have a lot of content creators, copyright owners, pretty much suing OpenAI, Google for a variety of different topics because there's so much kind of obscurity that's happening during this process. Now, on top of this, right, we have regulators who are kind of very scared of the repercussions of these models, but at the same time, they don't fully understand how to regulate this. And instead of creating a more competitive landscape, requiring to have the content and kind of models to be open and accessible, they require to have data teams and inspection teams and ethics teams that just add more complexity and make sure that startups are not able to do anything. We have users who are not able to kind of distinguish what's misleading content, what is comes out of an ad, or what is a manipulative content that's trying to extract more value from them. You have this challenge with economics of big tech companies where they need to continue growing revenue and in turn pretty much manipulating people to click on an ad and pretty much kind of generate more revenue through that. And you have users and communities that have no idea what is going on in this model, right? What content went in, right? We are here in UAE, which is very different standards from US, which has very different standards from Netherlands or China. And so all of these different countries, right, they need a different data set curation to go into the model that they use. And so this is a case for user-owned AI. This is really about how do we have models that are not trying to profit a company, a corporation, but actually are on your side and actually able to deliver you the value, be aligned with your personal and kind of financial, health, mindset reasons, and be able to be kind of serving you and defending you from kind of the attack of the rest of the world. So there's a whole stack of technologies that need to happen for this to really be realized. And it kind of spans from data to infrastructure to applications. There's a lot of applications, but I'll cover a few very specific things just to give you an idea how this works. So first of all, it starts with content, right? A lot of data right now being scraped from internet, but the thing is, like now, because people know that this is happening, you actually can start poisoning training data for the future models by putting incorrect content or biased content into the future training data. Right now, if you just start posting stuff on Reddit, the Google and other companies who buy this data from Reddit will now be affected, and the model will respond differently based on what's happening. And so what you want is you want an ability to have a cryptographic reputation of the data. You want to have this information available. You want the community to be able to actively kind of comment and provide context for any of the information. The best kind of closest example for this is community nodes on X, where you're able to see different opinions about somebody's popular tweet. And so you can have similar idea using blockchain, using cryptography to really link the content. And again, importantly, this is not like pure AI problem. The misinformation has been existing for forever, right? You can literally create a misinformation by just editing a page in Inspect in your browser, posting the photography of that on Twitter, and people now confused and concerned, right? So this is kind of an important tool in general for preventing misinformation and misleading. Now, next step is the kind of creator economy that's happening right now that is based on the attention, the advertisement model, right? The TikToks and New York Times and other platforms. They're all based on somebody puts the content, and then a lot of people look at it, and there's ads intermixed into this, and then creators are rewarded. It's going to get disrupted by AI, right? AI models will be pretty much consuming all this content and then reinterpreting it pretty much with AI model to give you personalized output, right? Your news source will not be New York Times anymore. It'll be your personal model that read New York Times, that read Reuters, that read Bloomberg. And so how do we reward creators in this new economy, right? And right now we have all those lawsuits actually trying to battle this out, but they're missing the core component, which is a way to distribute reward to these people. And so the idea here is we have creators, be that author, the graphic designer, photographer, musician, who contribute data to a broader data network. All of this data then is used to train models, and the models are paying kind of royalties, and users of that models pay royalties back. And now we distribute those royalties based on how novel the data is. And this is important because it's different from traditional method where you distribute based on how much views that got or fixed fee. You're now distributing based on how novel the information is for the model. So that's a kind of data contribution network, data curation that needs to happen as well in pair with cryptographic reputation to really kind of affect and clean the data going forward. There is another piece, which is provable inference, right? Right now, when you go into ChatGPT, you enter in your request, you have no idea what output you're getting. Is this output from a model? Is there like an if statement somewhere that says if your email outputs this? If, for example, you're trying to analyze some trading or some financial information, maybe somebody's trying to affect your decision on the other side. You have no idea. And so provable inference is this idea that you want to have a proof, an ability to verify that the output actually came from a model that you asked it for. Now, the challenge with this is that it's extremely complex already to get an inference from a model. It requires a lot of hardware, and it's also non-deterministic because of different hardware has different architecture of implementing floating point operations. And so it's really challenging to achieve this, and so it's only valuable for operations where you are making financial decisions or maybe health decisions, and probably not as important for cases where you are trying to shitpost on Twitter. So extremely important use case. There's a lot of companies working on it, but also extremely complicated and hard to achieve. Now, the other interesting idea is right now we developed programmable assets, right? We have DeFi kind of exploding with all kinds of different options. But with now this intelligent tools, with LLMs, you're able to have intelligent assets, assets that react and act based on different outputs in the real world or something that's happening. And you can have everything from natural language oracles to yield optimization to even intelligent walls that rebalance kind of the assets they have based on different trading strategies. Now, the big caveat with this is that these LLMs right now are not robust for adversarial usage, right? They're trained to take everything that you give them on kind of as truth. They're generally not very good with ambiguity and kind of ability to determine when they're themselves not confident or when they fed misinformation. And so right now, this is extremely dangerous, and like a lot of people who are trying to do this are kind of potentially will have a lot of issues. Now, on Near, we actually have a really cool mini app to showcase this, but also collect training data. It's called ShieldGPT. And it allows users to pretty much convince the model to rebalance the vault of assets it has to whatever the asset they like, right? So you pretty much open it up and use the fact that the models are convincible, and you having this PvP game between different people who are trying to convince it to rebalance in different ways. The benefit is you're collecting training data to see the actual adversarial examples of how people are trying to convince these models. So I'll just finish on this note, right? We have an amazing advancements in technology, right? I mean, I've worked on AI, like I've been excited about these ideas from, I don't know, age 12. And the kind of challenge we're facing in front of us is that for-profit companies have this extremely negative incentive, because when they're making decision, they will always make decision how to generate more revenue out of the user, how to make more profit. And this leads to manipulative behavior. This leads to trying to use more of your private data, and it's kind of negative, like Black Mirror type outcome. And we have now Web3, which is a tool to disperse ownership, to have coordination of people, to have something where we don't need to continue post new gross revenue. We can have people owning and deciding how the protocol should evolve. And so we are at this kind of fork in the road, and I'm just encouraging everyone to continue seeing how we can contribute to going into the more user-owned direction and really benefit from kind of building this out, even though it will take some time and it will require to build new infrastructure to really build kind of truly user-owned open source AI. Thank you. Follow me on Twitter, and hope you had a great conference.